Imagine a couple who vanished without leaving a single trace. An investigation that stalled for more than a decade, until the day when a forgotten detail resurfaced, revealing a secret far darker than anyone could have ever imagined. This is the true story that shook Joshua Tree and brought to light a mystery buried for 11 years. It all begins in a quiet little town, in the heart of a region where nothing extraordinary ever happens. And yet, one morning in October 1991, an unremarkable couple, Harry and Sherry McAdams, disappears without a trace. They have been married for over 20 years, live in a modest house, and are known in their neighborhood for their kindness and well-ordered routine. Every day, at the same time, they walk their dog, chat with the neighbors, and tend to their garden. But that morning, nothing goes as usual. The dog is found alone, wandering the neighborhood, visibly agitated. The shutters of the house are still closed. No sign of activity. A concerned neighbor calls the police. When they enter the house, a strange atmosphere hits them. The coffee maker is still warm. The kitchen chairs are pushed back as if someone got up in a hurry, but there are no signs of a struggle. Days go by, the search begins. Volunteers, tracking dogs, helicopters, but nothing. No trace, no lead. It's as if the couple vanished into thin air. The case makes local headlines for a few weeks, then fades away. The investigators, out of evidence, gradually classify the case as a worrying disappearance, but with no suspicious elements. The mystery becomes just another rumor in this town that quickly forgets. Time passes. The McAdams fade into oblivion until an unexpected event, decades later, changes everything. 32 years later, in 2023, the McAdams case is nothing more than an old dusty file forgotten in the police archives. Until the day when an ordinary phone call rekindles an investigation frozen in time. A young man, passionate about hiking and local history, explores the dense forests around the town. While venturing near an old abandoned railway, he stumbles upon a strange object half buried under dead leaves. An old laminated map, yellowed by time. Intrigued, he takes it home with him. It appears to indicate a specific location, marked with a small red X several kilometers from the town, near an old forgotten cemetery that even longtime residents no longer mention. He posts a photo of the map on a local forum, asking if anyone knows this place. An hour later, a retired former police officer responds and immediately recognizes the handwriting scrawled on the back of the map. It's Harry McAdams' handwriting. The shock is immediate. How could this map, written by a man who disappeared more than 30 years ago, end up here, perfectly intact? And above all, what does this X mean? The police are contacted. A team is sent to the indicated location. After hours of searching around the old cemetery, an officer notices an irregularity in the ground, a few meters from the official graves. He digs, and what he finds will change everything. A carefully buried metal container, containing human remains wrapped in a thick tarp, perfectly preserved. Next to it, a rusted locket with the initials HM engraved on it. The investigation is officially reopened. DNA tests are launched. A few days later, the confirmation comes. These are the remains of Harry McAdams. But then where is Sherry? And above all, how could Harry's body have ended up buried in such a remote place without anyone noticing for 3 decades? What was once a closed case is now a crime scene. And this is only the beginning. The rediscovery of Harry McAdams' body in 2023 sends shockwaves through the community. But what intrigues the investigators most is the second absence. Where is Sherry? And above all, why is Harry buried alone? The team of detectives then dives back into the old case files. And very quickly, a detail once considered unimportant resurfaces. At the time of their disappearance, Harry was facing serious financial problems, debts quietly piling up, hidden behind the facade of a peaceful life. Bank statements, personal loans, overdrafts. Everything indicates that Harry was desperately trying to save a business that was going under. He once owned a small auto repair shop, modest but respectable, opened with the help of a childhood friend, Frank Delaney. A name that, at the time, was mentioned only once in the file, then forgotten. The man had left town just after the couple disappeared, claiming to have started a new life elsewhere. At the time, no one suspected him of anything. He had no criminal record, no obvious motive. But now, with the discovery of Harry's body, everything changes. The investigators track him down. Frank now lives 3 states away, under a different identity. When they meet him, he is nervous. He talks too fast. He says he hadn't seen Harry for years before his disappearance. But one detail catches their attention. He seems very well informed about Harry's debts, much more than a mere distant friend would be. And then, a former mechanic who worked for them at the time is found. Now retired, he agrees to talk. His statement is about to change everything. A few days before the couple disappeared, he remembers overhearing a violent argument in the garage office. Harry was shouting, Frank was making threats. They were talking about money, about not losing everything, and about a secret deal that absolutely couldn't fall into the wrong hands. But most of all, the old employee remembers a chilling sentence spoken by Frank. If you talk, you're dead, and so is your wife. This statement changes everything. The past comes rushing back, suddenly and violently. What seemed like a simple bankruptcy now becomes a possible motive for murder. A hidden motive, ignored until now, but resurfacing with startling brutality. And while investigators pursue this new lead, a much darker truth begins to emerge. A truth that could explain not only Harry's death, but also Sherry's mysterious disappearance. As the investigation progresses, the pieces of the puzzle begin to come together, revealing an increasingly dark and disturbing picture. The truth, which seemed buried under years of silence and dust, resurfaces with terrifying intensity. The investigators focus on Frank Delaney, Harry's former associate. His inconsistent statements, his hesitation under pressure, everything betrays a well-kept secret. But that's not all. A thorough search of his old belongings uncovers damning evidence, falsified financial documents, encrypted message exchanges, and most importantly, a USB drive containing hidden files. When they manage to decrypt these files, a chilling scenario emerges. Frank was not just an aggressive business partner, he was involved in a clandestine network of extortion and money laundering. Harry's garage was just one link in a much larger and more dangerous chain. But the biggest revelation is even more sinister. Among the files, investigators discover a deleted audio recording recovered by cybercrime experts. In it, you can hear a conversation between Frank and an anonymous accomplice discussing the Harry problem and how to make him disappear without leaving a trace. This evidence leaves no more room for doubt. The disappearance of Harry and Sherry was neither a simple accident nor a desperate escape. It was a premeditated murder, orchestrated with coldness and cynicism. The investigators also uncover another terrible truth. Testimonies collected from neighbors and former employees reveal that Sherry had discovered irregularities in the garage's accounts and was threatening to expose everything. Her presence that night, far from being a coincidence, was the cause of an explosive confrontation. The silence that followed their disappearance was not one of forgetfulness, but of a chilling fear and a threat that still hung over those who dared to get close to the truth. What had started as an investigation into a missing couple was now turning into a plunge into a world of betrayals, lies, and ruthless violence. The police knew that they held in their hands the key to solving this case, but also that they were venturing into territory where every truth revealed risked opening the door to new dangers. The investigation had been stagnating for months, each lead seeming to slip further away in a labyrinth of shadows and silence. Until the day when an unexpected, technical, and cold element changed everything. At the heart of the forensic laboratory, a team of scientists busied themselves around the remains found of Sherry. The sterile smell of solvents, the constant hum of machines, and the harsh glare of neon lights created an almost clinical atmosphere, far removed from the turmoil and emotions of the police officers in the field. The lead forensic scientist, Dr. Claire Moreau, is an expert in biomaterial analysis. Her job is to examine every microscopic detail, every fragment of evidence invisible to the naked eye. When she leaned over the bones, she did not expect to discover what would become the turning point of the case. Under her scanning electron microscope, a strange deposit appeared on the bone surfaces, particularly on the cervical vertebrae. These fine metallic-looking particles had an unusual density, and their chemical composition did not belong to the natural context of the burial site. She immediately sent samples to the laboratory specializing in mineralogy and materials science. The results were unequivocal. These microparticles were made of thorite, a rare radioactive mineral used in certain mining and technologically complex industries. But what made this discovery so shocking was the precise geographical location of this mineral. Thorite, which is very rare, is only found in exploitable quantities in a few very specific areas, one of which is located in the immediate vicinity of the disappearance site. This detail physically linked the victim to the site and, by extension, to a suspect potentially involved in illegal mining activities. The scientific report upended everything that was previously assumed. It was no longer just a simple missing person investigation, but a case where science came to corroborate suspicions that had long been set aside. The investigation then took a decisive turn. Thanks to this tangible evidence, the detectives were able to focus their search on a new suspect, a man whose mining interest in the area strangely coincided with the presence of thorite. This breakthrough made it possible to link the physical evidence to specific motives, giving the investigation the probative strength it had previously lacked. The fragile balance between hypothesis and certainty shifted. Science, relentless and impartial, had shattered the wall of silence. At last, it offered a key to unravel the mystery and reveal the truth that had been hidden for so many years beneath the arid desert sands. The interrogation had begun in a cold, impersonal room where every word seemed to weigh heavily in the tense air. Leland Croft, once a composed businessman and master of his own calm, was now confronted with an avalanche of evidence that would shake his confidence. When the detectives laid the lab results before him, his gaze, until then hard and controlled, showed the slightest crack. The scientific confirmation that particles of thorite, that highly specific radioactive mineral, had been found embedded in Jenna's bones placed him at the crime scene with relentless precision. The police then produced photographs enhanced by modern technology of dusty footprints collected from the van, revealing a unique pattern, that of a pair of geologist's boots. A rare exact model, matching precisely with Leland's purchases from that same period. Confronted with this double bind, the physical evidence tying him to the gruesome scene and the indelible print left in the vehicle, his armor of control and denial began to crack. First, a silence, then a slight trembling of the hands resting on the table, followed by a deep sigh. His gaze darted away, his jaw clenched. Leland was losing the battle he had fought for years to keep his secret buried. The detectives, experienced, did not press him too quickly. They let the weight of the truth settle slowly until he could no longer hold anything back. With a hoarse breath, heavy with a decade of silence and guilt, the facade crumbled. Leland confessed, each word falling like a hammer blow on the steel of his former life. He recounted how the confrontation, initially meant to settle their business disputes, had escalated, how anger had taken over, and how, in a fit of uncontrollable rage, he had struck Marcus with a geologist's hammer, killing him instantly. Then, how Jenna had become an unwanted witness, a living threat he could not let go. He had buried Jenna in a pit dug for his illegal operations, then hidden Marcus in an old abandoned mineshaft. He also confessed to the macabre staging at the gas station, where he had bought supplies under a false name and disguise to create a false trail, a man vaguely resembling Marcus, to divert suspicion from himself. Every detail of his account was a slow-acting poison that finally released the buried truth. In the end, the man who had once been master of his own fate was nothing more than a broken being, emptied, consumed by shame and fear. His collapse was complete and irreversible. In that grey room, under the impassive gaze of the police officers, Leland Croft had gone from a distant suspect to a morally condemned man, finally offering justice the truth it had sought for so long. After Leland Croft's harrowing confession, the case seemed, for the first time in over a decade, to be moving toward resolution. But justice, even when it seems close, is a winding path strewn with trials and formalities. Leland was immediately arrested, charged with 2 counts of premeditated murder, and placed in pretrial detention without the possibility of bail. His rapid fall from respectable businessman to prime suspect left public opinion and the Dinger family hanging on the upcoming judicial proceedings. The investigation, for its part, did not stop there. Marcus Dinger's body was finally recovered from the mining abyss, allowing for formal identification and the completion of the forensic medical file. Forensic medicine was now able to confirm the cause of death, thus closing a crucial chapter, however painful it may have been. The detectives worked tirelessly to assemble a solid case, combining Leland's confession, material evidence, including the toroid embedded in the bones, fingerprints, digital records, and collected testimonies. All of this formed an indisputable web, capable of withstanding even the most relentless defense. The trial was closely followed. The court, attentive and solemn, listened to the account of events, delving into the intricacies of a meticulous investigation, revealing secrets buried in the desert and human betrayals at the heart of a broken friendship. The defense attorneys tried to sow doubt, speaking of coincidences, flimsy evidence, and conspiracy theories. But the relentless science and Leland's own confession swept away all alternative hypotheses. After several weeks of hearings, the verdict was delivered. Leland Croft was found guilty of double first-degree murder. The sentence matched the horror of the crimes, life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. For Chloe Dinger and her family, it was a moment of pain mixed with relief. The long wait, the suffering caused by absence and mystery, finally found some form of closure. It wasn't the end of grief, but it was the end of uncertainty. Justice, though delayed, had finally delivered its verdict. The weight of the years was eased by the light that the truth had cast on this dark mystery. In the deserts of Joshua Tree, nature continued its silent work. But the story of the missing couple was no longer a secret. It became a painful testimony, a reminder that sometimes, behind the raw beauty of a wild landscape, dark truths lie hidden, waiting for someone to dare to unearth them. The resolution of this case remained etched in the collective memory, a mystery unraveled by the perseverance of justice and the courage of those who refused to give up. The story of Marcus and Jenna Dinger is one of a long-buried mystery, a secret hidden beneath the scorching desert sands, and a truth that took more than a decade to come to light. This account reminds us that behind every disappearance, every silence, there is often much more than what we initially believe. The tenacity of the investigators, the precision of science, and the strength of human courage made it possible to break through the veil of oblivion, bringing justice to two lost souls. But beyond the judicial resolution, a deeper lesson emerges: never to give up the search for truth, no matter how dark or difficult it may be. In the vast expanses of Joshua Tree, nature continues its work, unperturbed, but now, the echo of this story resounds. A timeless testament to the fragility of life, the power of secrets, and the light that always ends up piercing the darkness. Thank you for following this deep dive into an extraordinary mystery. Feel free to share this video, subscribe for more captivating stories, and leave your thoughts in the comments. The truth deserves to be heard.